You are listening to Lovely Talks Heavy. Hello everybody, and welcome to Lovely Talks Heavy. I am your host, Lovely, and I discuss everything I enjoy with regards to heavy music. It is October, or in the case of the subject matter of this episode, Clocktober. That's right, this episode will be all about my enjoyment, Metalocalypse and Dethklok. Now, where does the name Clocktober come from? Well, the root words of it are Dethklok and October, and it's something I coined a long time ago, around the time that Season 4 of Metalocalypse was coming out, and Death Album 3 was coming out, and that was a lot of content to be coming out within a 1 month. So, somebody on Twitter was telling Brendan Small that it is officially Rocktober. Then Brendan Small said, no, it's Deathtober. Then I tweeted back and said, what about Clocktober? And then Brian Beller, also of Dethklok, retweeted that and said, I like this coinage. And then Brendan Small's like, yeah, okay, we have a winner. So yeah, that's where Clocktober comes from. So anyway, before I dive deep into this episode, because there is a lot to dive into, I wanted to mention a couple of fun little things. Number one, if you haven't heard this past week, Gene Hoglan, the drummer for practically every band on the planet, including Dethklok and Brendan Small's Galacticon and Brendan Small's Galacticon 2, Become the Storm. That's an album. Anyway, he's been playing with the Late Night with Seth Meyers house band. At this time of recording, tonight is his last night playing with the Seth Meyers house band. I have DVR'd the shit out of these episodes just for Gene. There's like 0 people that have appeared on these episodes that I actually give a shit about aside from Gene. He showcased his talents, as always, on Seth Meyers, but if you haven't been able to catch this appearance on Seth Meyers, you can get a little taste of it on his Instagram at TheRealGeneHoglan. Number 2. I have been obsessively listening to the Sparks Nevada Marshall on Mars story on the Thrilling Adventure Hour podcast as of late. And this particular story is an Old West style sci-fi futuristic comedy tale following the life of Sparks Nevada, the Marshall on Mars. I've gathered a lot of enjoyment out of this podcast on its own. However, I've discovered that just yesterday, well, not just yesterday, but I discovered just yesterday, I should say, that Brendan Small has made a guest appearance on Sparks Nevada, a Marshall on Mars. Now, I'm always a fan of whenever Brendan makes an appearance in media, even if I don't like it, but when I heard Brendan's name announced in the beginning of this episode, I had to pause it just for a moment, or 7, just to fucking die. Because this is now instantly my favorite episode of Sparks Nevada Marshall on Mars. He doesn't even have a major role in it. He just plays the part of a test proctor while Sparks Nevada takes an exam to get his bounty hunting license. If you want to check out that episode, it is the Thrilling Adventure Hour number 91, Sparks Nevada, Marshall on Mars, Mutiny on the Bounty Hunter. Alrighty, now that those exciting bits of news and information are finished, let's really get into the episode. Now, this is only episode 8 of Lovely Talks Heavy, but I think I've made it clear on this podcast that I am a huge fan of all things Metalocalypse and Dethklok and Brendan Small, and so on and so forth. I've liked Metalocalypse since I was in high school. However, I really became a fan in 2012 with the premiere of Season 4. I think I mentioned this on the first episode of this podcast, but I also had a Metalocalypse fan cast called Mr. Crackish, and it was a really cheesy thing I did. It was terrible sound quality. I used the internal mic of my computer at that time, and I called it Mr. Crackish because we're the fans of Dethklok and Metalocalypse. We are a force making Dethklok rise. I don't know, it was so cheesy, but I did it for at least 12 episodes, I remember. So let's see if this podcast can outlive that one. Anyway, I remember first listening to Dethklok in high school, but being a baby metalhead who still had a fear of the white Baptist Christian God in them, the only 3 songs that I listened to by Dethklok were the Death Theme, Duncan Hill's Coffee Jingle, and Awaken. Now, however, there are only 3 songs by Dethklok that I can't listen to. And did I mention personal reasons? Because it's just very, very deep personal reasons. But literally every other song by Dethklok is yes. Along with that love of every Dethklok song, I also have a superpower of relating everything and anything to Metalocalypse. You could give me just anything, the least metal thing you could think of, and I will fucking tie it to Metalocalypse. You best believe it. I've played this game many a time with friends, and I have not lost yet. Somebody threw Gilmore Girls at me once, and I fucking tied it to Metalocalypse. You better believe it. On top of that superpower, I also have another superpower where, even though I cannot for the life of me remember the exact episode order of every single Metalocalypse episode, save for like the first and last episodes of each season, because primacy and recency effects, and also season 4, episode 7, but we'll get into that later. I have a superpower of just, looking at an image or a screenshot or anything from any Metalocalypse episode and just knowing instantly what episode that it's from. I am obsessed. But what is a metalhead without obsession? Anyways, this episode I will explore some of my favorite Metalocalypse episodes, characters, cameo/guest appearances, secret band references, and of course Dethklok songs. So let's get started. We all have at least one favorite episode or increment, installment, what have you, of our favorite media, movies, TV shows, books, podcasts, etc., etc., etc. And while I love Metalocalypse, only a few episodes reign supreme for me. My most absolute favorite one is Death Camp, Season 4, Episode 7 of Metalocalypse. This is the first time we hear Magnus Hammersmith speak, as well as get an understanding of his relationship with Dethklok. Spoiler alert, even though he seems like a nice guy in the end of this episode, it turns out he's still a piece of shit. But I still love him. And I still love him. This is undeniably one of my most favorite episodes of Metalocalypse, and anybody that knows me knows exactly how much I love Magnus Hammersmith. I hope he's okay. And that he gets a spin-off series in the style of My Name's Earl. Moving on. My second in this list of favorite episodes of Metalocalypse is Renovation Clock, Episode 1 of Season 3. I don't just love this episode for the first appearance of Magnus Hammersmith, though that certainly helps. We see the introduction of the 22-minute long episodes of Metalocalypse with Renovation Clock. While Dethklok struggle to renovate their home, Mordhouse, they also struggle with the economy that is in shambles. This episode also gives us the badass track Crush the Industry, industry, I should say, not industry. Industry. Crush the industry. That while performing it, Nathan Explosion declares that they wish to see the death of the concept of money. It's a fucking badass song, and if you don't know it, go listen to it after this podcast. It's a good one. Season 1, Episode 2, the second ever episode of Metalocalypse, Deathwater, is on this list of favorite episodes of mine. It shows the level of perfectionism that Nathan Explosion expects out of his own art. We see what looks like a badass music video to the song Thunder Horse, and Nathan Explosion just fucking deletes the entire album that song is on. They recover that one though. Only that one. Off screen. Anyway, after Nathan Explosion deletes that album, he decides they need to take their recording process underwater, which their record label allows. But unfortunately for them, they have to take on a producer by the name of Dick Nubler. I mean, it's not the fact that this guy's named Dick Nubler, it's the fact that they don't want to have a producer. Much like how back in the day, before the Black Album by Metallica existed, Metallica's label wanted them to have a producer on there, and like their reaction was apprehensive at best, but they allowed it. Like it wasn't like with Dethklok here. And I mean, now lo and behold, it's one of the best-selling albums of all time, possibly. I don't know, I'm just throwing that statistic off the top of my head. Anyways, moving on. Now, I normally hate Christmassy stuff, and that goddamn clown, Dr. Roxo, the curse that the Metalocalypse writing staff have wrought onto themselves. And yet, this episode has a good amount of both, and it's one of my favorites. It's Deathmas. This episode also brought the curse of that godforsaken Christmas tree meme that I've seen 7 billion times within my short life. Metalocalypse fans know exactly which one I'm talking about. It has haunted us. It haunts us now. It will haunt our grandchildren and our grandchildren's grandchildren into the years to come. It will be the year 3077, and that meme will still be fucking posted on Facebook a million times by metalheads who think they're hilarious. Anyways, my most favorite part of this episode includes Toki Wartooth calling his bandmates in Dethklok a bunch of assholes and telling them how nice he's going to be to them by giving them Christmas presents. That, and also Dr. Roxo veers past a clocketeer guarding the Christmas special that Murderface and Dick Nubler are hosting while just exclaiming, "Cocaine!" I mean, it's more funny within the episode. You just go watch it. And also this episode has the song Cyborg Slayers in it, not for a like long period of time, like Dethklok don't perform it, but it's there and it's just a really good song. Anyhow, there's only a handful of characters that have lived through the fullness of Metalocalypse due to the fact that Dethklok bring death everywhere they go. But dead or alive, there are characters we've grown to love, and here's some of my favorites. Number 1, Magnus Hammersmith. Even blind people from all the way in the Netherlands have seen this one coming from me. Speaking of which, hello to my pal Tino listening to this right now. Hi, you got referenced in here. I mean, I would pay you for your semi-appearance in this episode, but I don't get paid for this. But I am not going to explain any further my love for Magnus Hammersmith. Anybody that's known me for any period amount, wait, no, fuck that, hold on, rewind that. Anybody that has known me for any period of time knows how much I love Magnus Hammersmith, as previously established in the favorite episodes portion of this podcast, so I'm just not going to elaborate further. So moving on, my next favorite is Abigail Remeltendrink. My favorite ambiguously brown girl in all of the land with an impossible to spell last name. She's stuck around since her introduction in Writer's Clock in season 4. She has survived through Doomstar Requiem, and I am only glad for that. I love Abigail so much. Number 3 is Squiskar Squigelf. He's a dumb blonde who amn't a man but a god. And surprisingly, he's not the inspiration behind my slow journey in teaching myself Swedish. Maybe I should do my introduction in Swedish sometime. Just going to write that down real quick. Introduce self in Swedish on podcast. Okay, moving on. The final character I'm going to elaborate on being my favorite in Metalocalypse is me. Okay, yes, this is completely self-serving, but I have a reason. There are so many character models for Dethklok fans in Metalocalypse, and eventually, if you watch it hard enough and closely enough, you'll find a character model that looks just like you. I first saw this character in Doomstar Requiem, and by me, I mean my friends noticed it first and pointed it out to me, and so I watched it again. I was like, holy shit, that does look like me. And I noticed my character model again in Fertility Clock, like way back in the crowd, just wanting to procreate with Tokywatooth. It's a fun, anyway, if you ever want to find yourself a character that looks like you, it is a fun game to play. If you ever get bored, or if you just are self-indulgent like me, there's no shame in that, you know, just say, hey, that character model looks just like me. Brendan Small has brought in a lot of talent from the metal and comedy worlds to be guest voices on Metalocalypse. Some of my favorites include James Hetfield as Musta Krakish. You might not instantly recognize his voice in Death Troll due to him not exclaiming, yeah! I can't do a James Hetfield impression. Just don't ever ask me to. I just can't do it. That was the furthest from James Hetfield. Like, you know. Anyways. But James Hetfield is in fact the voice of Musta Krakish the Lake Troll from Lake Bodom in Finland. Coming up at number 2, I mean, I should point out these aren't in any particular order. They're just as I think of them. I mean, except for like any reference to Magnus Hammersmith being number 1. I mean, that would be the only case, but otherwise these are just as I think of them. Like, oh yeah, these are my favorites. Anyways, number 2 on this list is the band Mastodon as the band Get Thee Hence. Long before Brent Hines ever appeared on Game of Thrones, he was a guest voice on Metalocalypse. In the episode Death Residuals, Murderface signs a new metal band, which is already the butt of a joke right there. Signs a band called Get Thee Hence, who are voiced by the boys of Mastodon. However, by the end of the episode, we learn that Dethklok's fans aren't fans of Get Thee Hence, to say the least. Number 3, Mark Maron as Magnus Hammer, Angela Gossow as Livona Succuboso. We sadly don't hear too much of Angela in the Metalocalypse world, as her schedule never allowed too much voiceover time with Metalocalypse. She only makes a couple of appearances as Livona Succuboso, leader of Succuboso Explosion, who are hell-bent on getting Nathan Explosion's seed. so they can carry his children. As I think the quote of them, their motto was, I think their motto was something like, "We are the vessels that will hold the future." Something like that, don't quote me on that. You don't have to be a metalhead to understand / enjoy the hidden band references in Metalocalypse, because Metalocalypse can be enjoyed on a number of levels. But if you are a metalhead, those references are just a little delight in your Metalocalypse viewing experience. Some of my favorites, of course, include Cattle Decapitation Animal Shelter. While being a tongue-in-cheek reference, this also is possibly a nod to the subject matter of most of Cattle Decapitation's songs, and that the original lineup were all vegetarians. Number 2, of course, I have to say the Fin Troll grocery store. It's the first band reference ever made in Metalocalypse, and possibly the most iconic. Of course, it's spelt wrong in its first appearance, but it gets fixed by season 2. Number 3, Cannibal Corpse. Now, there appears to be a couple of different references to Cannibal Corpse in the series, but the one I'm referring to is involves Nathan Explosion reading his grandmother's diary in the episode Dethklok, where she details her account of eating her former husband with the Yanamango tribe, which is part of Nathan Explosion's ancestry. Once Pickles learns this, he says, "Dude, that's totally Cannibal Corpse." Number 4 is Malmsteen's Pub. Clearly named after Yngwie Malmsteen, it's only fitting for an episode centered on Skwisgaar, the guitar god, to be drinking in a pub named after another guitar god. Finally, let's talk about some of my favorite Dethklok songs. There are so many to choose from, but I'm only restricting myself to 5. Not an easy task, mind you. So, here we go. Number 1. This is a comprehensive part of the list. I do think my most favorite Dethklok song is, in fact, Mermaider. I just love this song for so many reasons. I mean, it's just silly if you think about it, as is the running theme of the song names on Death Album, the first Death Album, I should say. It's got a simpleness in its rhythm and lyrical structure, but I love how everything is constructed on this song. Number 2 is The Hammer. I'm so surprised no one said ever listening to this right now. I've listened to the song so much just based on my love of Magnus Hammersmith alone, not even due to the fact that I do like the lyrics, the instrumentation, all that stuff. Just the power of love for a character who's a piece of shit. That's why this song has at least like 5,000 plays on my iTunes library. Anyhow, number 3 is Burn the Earth. Now, I'm not going to refer to anything within the construction of this song, but I will relay a couple of fun personal stories. One time I performed at a talent show and did death metal vocals to this song and scared the shit out of everyone in the audience because I am a deceivingly adorable 4'9" person. And number 2, I recorded a cover of this, which the folks on the Metal Injection live cast really dug. I might be putting words in their mouth when I say they really dug it, but, I called in one day and was like, I recorded this, and they're like, let's do an impromptu thrash it or trash it, which, if you've ever listened to the Metal Injection podcast, that's a thing they do where you share your band's music, and they're like, they'll thrash it or trash it, say, yeah, I dig this, or no, this sucks. And they thrashed it. They liked it. Ooh, that was some pressure I went under. Anyway, now, I will say excuse me for bragging in both those stories, but I just want to brag. It's my podcast. What you gonna do about it? Anyways, number 4, Bloodrocuted. Good title for a song. Bloodrocuted. It gives a bit of a new metal vibe in the song, which is part of why I like it. There's gotta be, some sort of, not so much new metal as I would say groove. It's got a groove. That's what it is. Plus, the music video for it, the band performing segments on it are just so artistically, I just love it. Number 5, I Ejaculate Fire. It's a funny name for a song on Death Album 3, giving a nod to the naming conventions on the songs on the Death Album 1, the first one. It's it's easy to get hard when you name your albums the Death Album 2, and Death Album 3, but anyways. Brendan Small does a bit of a funny dramatic read of the lyrics on the making of the Death Album 3 documentary on the Death Album 3 Deluxe Edition. Have I mentioned Death Album 3? Because Death Album 3. Anyways, the song also makes an appearance on the episode Death Health, where Nathan proclaims that the band just learned that cats, in fact, have balls. And that was a lot that I just covered. Just kind of expect me to talk forever if I'm talking about Metalocalypse and or Dethklok and or Brendan Small and anything within that universe or the gravitational pull of that subject matter. Anyways, if you enjoyed this episode of Lovely Talks Heavy, please share it with a friend. If you ever want to play a game of let's name something totally not metal and see if Lovely can totally relate it to Metalocalypse, which the answer is yes, they totally will, you can hit me up on social media, on Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, Mixcloud, and Instagram. My handle is LovelyMetalhead, just simply LovelyMetalhead, no spaces, all that fun stuff. Or if you'd ever just want to say hi or leave some feedback, I'm cool with that too. Until next week, next Saturday, for the next episode of Lovely Talks Heavy, you stay brutal, my friends. Bye.